Hello and welcome to Square Raindrop. I'm Jo Wheeler.
And I'm Steff Golter.
And Steffi, you're a little tired, aren't you?
Thanks very much. You're not looking so great yourself. No, yes, you're absolutely right, Jo. I am Harry knackered. I got back at 2 o'clock in the morning after a beautiful holiday. I am tired. I think probably my children are that little bit more tired, but that's okay because today is the first day of class. So they're at school. That's why the teachers are paid the big bucks to look after my very tired children.
So you got back at 2 o'clock this morning and your children were in school by 8:30, 8:45.
Well, I can't get a fine, can I, Jo? Can't not see them.
No, maybe you can't get a fine for that. But Steffi, you were extremely lucky to have made that holiday anyway. Now, I did tease this a little bit. I did tease it because they were in an airport looking all anticipatory about this wonderful holiday you're about to go on. And what happens?
I tell you, emotional highs and lows, Jo. We're in the queue, waiting to drop off our cases, lots of excitement, lots of energy. And then the man looked at my passport, looked back at us, looked at my passport again, took it off to show his supervisor. She shook her head. I said to my other half, one of us isn't flying today. And the man came back and that person was me. So yes, if you are traveling anywhere in the next, ever, check your passport, because not only does it have to be a certain number of months remaining on it for you to fly, as we all know, it also has to be less than 10 years old. And my passport went to about 10 years and 9 months. So although it had at least 6 months left on it, it was 30 days too old.
Oh no, that is truly, truly dismal. Now, of course, I put the picture up of you in the airport, which everybody assumed to be Heathrow, but
oh no, that was Gatwick, my friends. That wasn't Heathrow. So yes, we were supposed to be flying from Gatwick, and they did. It was just me that didn't. But fortunately, I used to live in London, so I have some friends there. Well, she probably isn't my friend anymore because I went to stay with her and then stayed for 4 days while I got my passport renewed and got a new flight out of there.
hey, at least you got there in the end. I have to say, poor old Gatwick seems to bear the brunt of it. Many years ago, flying back to Portugal in the height of summer, I arrived at Gatwick with my two youngest, driven down by my father, to meet up with my three eldest, driven up from the south coast. And we all met at Gatwick, which was just heaving. I mean, I have never seen more people in an airport. And of course, we're snaking around backwards and forwards. And I'm more diligent than you. I've checked the passports. I know the passports are just fine.
Excuse me? You're what?
Just you have to wait, right? I knew that the passports were all fine and dandy, and that was great. And after much time, and a daughter had actually got a stomach ache, yeah, so we had to keep dashing out of the queue. We reached the front, and I slammed down the passports and the tickets, and they said, "That's very good. Your plane left yesterday."
Oh no!
Oh, I wasn't very popular that day.
No. Did you get renewed flights, or did you give up on that one?
No. We had to, because we were living there at the time. We had to get back home. We weren't at home, sort of going on holiday. We were on holiday going home. So yeah, we had to get back. It took a bit of rearranging and several airports and split flights across the country, but we managed it.
I think
was
it
okay.
does happen a lot. I do remember being in New Mexico visiting a friend of mine. This is many moons ago. But these people who were also visiting her were saying, "Oh, we were playing in a gig in a local pub on this day at this time. How many hours is that between now and when we're playing in the pub?" And I worked it out, and I went, "It's in an hour. So I suggest there's something wrong with your flights." And they looked at me and they went, "No, you can't be right." But they got to the airport the next day, and sure enough, they were 24 hours too late for their flight.
No. Well, I mean, these things do happen. I remember the tightest I ever ran, it was flying back from the south of France, which was a holiday. And I think our flight was something like 1 in the afternoon. But of course, we were an hour out anyway. But I was working at Sky at 4. So it was fairly critical that we got to the airport. Everything went fine. The flight took off in time. I got back to Heathrow and dashed down the road to do Sky's weather. Yeah,
there you go.
I did it.
Oh, every minute counts.
Absolutely. Did you have some good weather, by the way?
It was glorious. So last year, I remember I forgot to check whether the hotel had AC. I didn't realize it was a thing that some of them don't over there. If you're flying to the Canary Islands, check for AC. Not all of them do. And mine didn't. And there was a heat wave. So it was about 38, 39 degrees, absolutely boiling. And even I was hot. I am a very cold person. I'm always cold. This year, top temperature about 31, 32. And I may have said on occasion, it's a bit chilly.
I'm sure that you did. I actually had quite good weather when I went to Greece. Did I mention that at all?
No, don't talk about Greece. We do not talk about Greece. And we don't talk about passports either. There's going to be a whole list of things we don't talk about by the end of these podcasts. So, what was the weather like here while I was away?
I was going to say the next one's going to be the area of high pressure you were supposed to come back to, which somehow didn't happen. It was holding on. It was there. It was getting stronger and stronger. The signal was, beyond belief. And then suddenly it's all just kind of collapsed. And we had kind of one good day and then turned muggy and very warm, and warnings of thunderstorms and further warnings of thunderstorms to come. It's all a bit of a messy breakdown when we never really had any nice weather to start with.
So I think what we can say is that I left the weather in your charge and you broke it. Is that what we can say?
Yeah, well, we can say that. And you know something, for all those people who think that we're actually responsible for the weather, when of course we're not, yeah, you left locking the weather machine, the one that makes the pretty pictures, in a cupboard, yeah, leaving me with my arts and crafts and limited graphics skills. And I got quite excited about doing cloud, actually. I discovered I could make it bigger, smaller, thicker, darker. And I think it's my fault because I started playing with the cloud and I put it everywhere. And one way or another, we just ended up with a load of rain coming out of it.
Right. Yep, entirely your fault. What I did notice was instead of landing into high pressure, we landed into a great big bank of cloud and fog and mist. But the weird thing was, Joe, that it was still hot and humid and really humid. So in Doha, I don't know whether you ever got this in Portugal, but it was so humid in Doha at certain times of the year that you could put the AC on in your car because it was about 45 and you had to, but it meant that the condensation was on the outside of the car. So then you had to have the windscreen wipers going in order to see anything. It was the same from Gatwick last night. So if we had the AC in our car on at 18.5 or below, we got condensation on the outside of our car. If it was on at 19, then we didn't get the condensation and the actual outside temperature was 20 degrees. Only interesting to nerds, but I found it really interesting.
It was probably the only thing keeping you awake at 2 o'clock this morning.
Yes, it wasn't my children. They were asleep, as was my husband. So yep, just the condensation to play with and chat to.
Yeah, and you didn't actually call me at the time. I appreciate that. But as we look at the week ahead, things are not looking too cushy
or reliable. So
no,
most of the forecasts say, as of Wednesday, forget it. There's so much uncertainty into how things are materializing that it's almost ridiculous to try and forecast it in a way. There's a chance there might be some drier weather in the north. There's a chance there might not. And there's a chance we might see more showery weather in the south, and the chance we might not. So it's all very much up in the air.
Yeah, we sort of get squidged between two areas of high pressure, don't we? One which is kind of up towards the northeast, and the other one, the Azores high, which is a big burly high pressure system, which wields some strength if it can get close enough. But we're kind of between the two of those, and there's a nasty squeeze at times, which could give us some fairly windy weather as well. So all the rubbish coming off the Atlantic seems to manage to get to us one way or another.
Yeah, it topples over that Azores high, doesn't it? And goes, oh, there's the UK, here I come.
Oh, well, if kids have got new welly boots to go to school or new coats, at least they'll be able to use them. I mean, let's look on the bright side.
Everyone's a winner. It's all about reframing.
Now, I'll tell you where welly boots would not be enough, and that's in Saudi Arabia. I have been watching the weather everywhere else whilst you've been away, and dutifully, it's been quite quiet, to be honest. But Saudi has had some floods. Is that a surprise?
No, not really. Usually in the year, we will have heavy rain somewhere in the Saudi Peninsula. Sometimes it's in Doha, sometimes the UAE. We all heard about the Dubai floods. And every year it will be somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula. This time it's been in Medina, I believe, one of the cities on the Red Sea coast, so right on the west. So unusual for Medina itself to see the flooding, But is it unusual for Saudi Arabia to get flooding? No. And part of the reason is it's often thunderstorms, very intense, heavy downpours that fall in a very short space of time. And the ground there is baked hard by the sun. So it can't absorb anything. It doesn't have all the greenery outside that we have here. So it just sits on the surface. It just doesn't absorb. So when it rains, it doesn't go anywhere and it just forms massive, great big puddles and floods. So bad news for Medina, but unfortunately for the Saudi Peninsula, it's like every year somewhere will flood. It's a case of where.
It's interesting you mentioned that about the baked ground, because frequently in this country, when the rain comes, I mean, for a start, we have many different types of rain, probably as many different types of rain as the Eskimos have snow, but very, very dependent on the way that on the ground that it's falling on, as to whether or not it's good rain or bad rain for us. Because again, when we have a spell of hot weather in those years when we used to, and then suddenly you get rainfall, it just runs off and into the drains and doesn't actually get into the ground, because the ground's too hard for it to actually permeate and get down to those water tables where we want it.
Yeah, and then there's the other extreme where the ground's fully saturated and can't hold any more water. So what you want is like ground, ideally with some plants in so that it could absorb the moisture, and for it to be damp but not wet and not too dry. It's got to be, it's very exact.
I think we've got the potential for this conversation to carry on for some time, because of the other thing that happened whilst you were away was the British summer came to an end. There's a bit of a shock for you.
Did it start, Sunday... Jo? When did it start? I missed that.
No. Well, we thought we'd get a little bit of summer weather at the start of autumn, but I have to say, me, the crystal ball galer, because I know you don't do it, I can't see anything in the next couple of weeks that's even looking remotely cushy. However, as you say, the forecast, very low confidence from midweek onwards.
Exactly. So I know you're crystal ball gazing, and I don't appreciate it at all when it tempts me with beautiful fine weather and then completely dashes my hopes. So maybe this is better. There's just nothing. There's nothing on the horizon. Forget it. It'll be okay. We're going autumn.
What amuses me is that on the second day of autumn, and for the first time ever, both of us wearing T-shirts. I think this is the first time I've worn one this summer. I don't tend to go outside much. I know, get me.
Well, anyway. I'm only wearing a T-shirt because all my clothes are in the wash after the holiday.
Well, do you know something? For somebody who's had very, very little sleep, you're looking fantastic. The holiday obviously did you good. When you got back.
Yes, spending time with a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. I'll do it for you, Jo. I'll send them your way.
Lovely. Now, you've got a personalised forecast to do this week, and you're a little bit tired. But if anybody does want a personalised forecast for any event, whether you've got a big event coming up, a bit of a trip, or you just want to know what the weather's doing, just get in contact with us.
What are you up to this weekend? Anything? I've got Friday free just for you.